We're back for season 2.
Yes, it's bigger. It's badder. It's
I'll just get on with it.
Bad Scripts.
So good evening and welcome to the Bad Script podcast. It's me, Steve Jones. And as you can see, a man I don't need to really introduce tonight because we're live on video. It's none other than Mr. Mike Garlia. Hi, Mike.
Hello, everyone. If you're seeing us for the first time live, I suppose it's rare we do this on camera, isn't it? It's it's really rare that we actually expose ourselves in these kind of ways.
Yeah, I mean, not since the court order about exposing ourselves have we done this much exposing of ourselves. But no, I think because tonight's a bit of a different episode, it's a special. We're reflecting on a little trip we took a few days ago, and we're not working through the script. We thought, why not show our faces on screen and let all you lovely people stare at two middle-aged men chatting away anecdotally. So, welcome, and we hope you enjoy the show. Mike, how are you?
I'm okay until you said the word middle-aged. I'm in denial here, Stephen. You just keep reminding me of this fact. Now I know that middle age is a number, and I'm living till I'm at least 160, which means I'm still in my youth.
Right. Okay. So denial. Yeah, we're definitely got the denial.
I'm hobbit living. I am, hobbits like in the book, they're like over 100 years old and stuff. They age really, really slowly. That's what I'm doing. I'm embracing that. I've asked the universe if I was to make a wish with a genie. That's what I'm asking for. But not like a Dorian Gray kind of thing where the picture ages and I don't. Although I'm quite happy with that as well. In fact, if anyone out there can make that happen, then please do.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do on that one. So, the reason we're here, like we just said, was that we went on a little trip a couple of weeks ago now, to the place where the last resort, I guess you could say, was born, because it's the holiday resort in which we cut our teeth as performers, and then based our script on our time there. So, should we go right back to where the trip came from?
Let's also say loosely based on. I mean, we've exaggerated and elaborated. Now, I don't think for the amount of times we've been away from there, we'd remember absolutely everything. But yeah, it seems quite right to take a trip down memory lane and to explain to the listeners exactly how we felt, what we saw, what we experienced, and the 5-day hangover we all had afterwards.
So when we did a special in season 1, we brought a few of our former Coat entertaining friends that had shared some of those experiences with us together, and we did our last video episode. And so we got chatting after the show and reconnected with all those people, and I think that spawned eventually the decision for us all to meet up and go back to whence it all began. And relive our youth a little bit 23 years later.
Now, I've got to make one observation before we start here, right? And you were very at fault for this when it comes to that group dynamic. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. I'm ready for my character assessment.
Because there's going to be an ask. There's going to be an ask for you here, right? So whenever you get a group of people together who haven't been around for a really long time, everyone's trying to find their place and stuff, but you always get one dominant person in the group, the one person who's got a big personality, who's larger than life, and that person joined us. And hello, Fudge, if you're listening to this. Now, the thing about his name's Dan, but the thing about him is he has a very strong and very prominent Rotherham accent. And this incredible emergence started to happen that was funny to observe, where everyone in the group all started talking like they were from Rotherham, whether they liked it or not. And Steve, being very good with accents, having a really good ear, you were one of the worst for it. I'd like you, absolutely. And I've missed it. Can you just recount the Rotherham accent for us, please?
I don't know if I can just do it on command, though, because it literally rubbed off on me. If I'm around anybody with any accent, that's it. I start adapting to be that person. I've lived in different parts of the UK as you have, Mike, and you've been in Scotland for so long, and yet your accent not a hint of Scottish. Do you know what I mean?
Wow, not even when I perform Scottish.
Well,
Yeah, okay,
well,
don't answer that.
the
Don't
less we
answer
say about
that.
that, the better,
Don't
really.
answer
But
that.
no, the point being, no. So with with the Rotherham side of things, and I guess it's more of a like you're getting up to Yorkshire, going, "You're right, lad. You're right, lad. How you doing? Hey, come on, get in here. Come on, have a cuddle. Go on, you big daft apeth." You know, you just feel like there's a warmth to that accent. There's a friendliness and a humility and just something about it that makes you want to cuddle people. Um, and you say, and we shouldn't really dwell too much on the people that were there. It's their anonymity to have a good time. But Fudge is a big character. He's a big guy. He's a tall guy. But he's one of the loveliest people I've ever met. And would do anything for anybody. And it's just a great person to have in those situations because they break down the barriers straight away. Not that there were any major barriers, but everyone felt really relaxed and really loose straight away because you've got this big jolly personality. So yeah.
So for everyone, if anyone in Rotherham is listening to this, then we tip our hats to you. You are all champions of the United Kingdom. Yeah, he was a really good character, but his accent just kind of was that infectious. As you were saying, you're right, lad, get over here. And when you use your R's instead of T's and stuff. But it was interesting for me to observe that as a dynamic of how everyone just started talking. And then I think there was some, chatting in the groups that we're in about, it's taking me days to get over this Rotherham accent. I'm not even from Rotherham. I've never been there before, but I'm kind of talking with that really broad Yorkshire accent, Anyway, just an observation before we get started.
Well, thank you. Thank you for observing my lack of commitment to my own accent, which, I don't think is overly strong for somebody who's from the East Midlands. I would say that I'm not as Nottingham as a lot of folk. But I guess that's from going here, there, and everywhere. And I've just symbiotically snatched away from all these different places that I've been.
Well, it's interesting because I heard the word duck mentioned quite a lot. Now, I'm from Lincolnshire, and that's a very kind of Northern England thing to say. You're right, duck. What's up, duck?
Yeah, well, not Nottingham. I mean, "A up me duck" is literally the catchphrase of people of Nottingham.
It's the thing, isn't it? But because obviously I live in Scotland, that's not a word people would use over here. They've gone the other end. They call people hens. So it was really weird being around that and listening to people get called ducks constantly, if you take it that literally.
Well, it's all foul as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, I'll stop now. So we getting back on track. We decided that a reunion was in order. It had been 23 years, and one of our good friends decided that they were going to loosely organise something, and we all booked, and the time finally came 7 months later. And Mike, you came down and you joined me. And those of you that follow our social media will know because we put a photo on. We were in the same room. We were in this very room, in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, spending some much needed time together before our couple of hour drive over to the coast to the resort. What were your feelings the night before, Mike? How did you feel about going back?
I don't really want to talk about it, Steve, to be perfectly honest with you, because
you were in the wrong place. This is the point.
And I know you said that we weren't ever going to talk about it again, but I'm not coming back ever again. No, I'm only kidding. My feelings. Do you know? I'm gonna talk about two things. One, I was a little bit nervous and anxious and a bit trepidatious, because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel going back there because I left before you and you kind of left a little bit later than that. And because I built up this memory of things I'd done there and like, how am I going to feel when I see that stage again? How am I going to feel when I walk around that resort, when we go to our old accommodation, what feelings are going to emerge from them? So I was a little bit nervous and I did say to you, I'm a little, and you were like, there's nothing to worry about. And then when I actually got there and I experienced it, I had no emotion whatsoever. I didn't feel anything. It didn't feel of my time anymore. And it felt that, it was just it was a moment in time in the past, and it's been left in the past. And I think the show, the script, the podcast has probably helped deal with a lot of that stuff and put it all into paper and air it all out and talk about it and talk about those memories. But I surprised myself because I felt I thought I'd feel more when I was there, but I just enjoyed it. And I think I was more there for the people and for the company than I was for the surroundings and the environment.
100%. I think the most upset I was how far you maybe walked trying to find your flat that you used to live in. That we kept going down the street and you're going, I think it's number 18. What number was it in the end?
114.
Yeah,
so
nowhere near 18, was it?
And it's so funny because the lovely local people and stuff, they're salt of the earth is what you'll call them. And I don't know about you, but the town we were in, it was very grey. It was a grey day, but it just looked sepia. It's one of these towns that just looked sepia. There's not really a lot of colour, and everything just looks kind of samey. I thought it looked a bit kind of downtrodden, actually, and a little bit worse for wear.
And I suppose you also have to take into account it's February. So this place isn't full of life. Everywhere's not open. So any seaside resort in February is going to feel a bit...
Yet, we all commented on how much it smelled of fish and chips. Like there is a fish and chip shop every 3 meters.
Everywhere. Well, it has to be. And it's poignant, isn't it? It's one of those things. But those are the things. Those are the scents that transport you back to your childhood and going to these places, that transport you back to the time when we were there. And I think it unlocks a lot of memories that I'd completely forgotten about. And, you know, catching up with all the guys that went, because to a single person, they were all fantastic. And it was just such a pleasure to reconnect with them. We didn't have it. There was no drama. There was no hoo-ha. It was just everybody was there to have a good time, have a laugh and catch up. And I think that was the refreshing bit. So you say I guess for me, I find the podcast more poignant, the script more poignant than being there physically, because I was in the same situation. I've been back to that town, but I've not been back to the resort since. My kids have been there with my mum and what have you, but I hadn't returned because I think, like you, there was a little bit of trepidation. How will I feel walking through there? Will I be full of regrets that I didn't stay longer? Will I be full of will I be upset at the passage of time and feeling like time has escaped me and that it's beyond me now? But you know, I didn't feel that. I felt a kind of, there was a familiarity because although it was different, you know, 20 years on any place, there's new buildings, there's new stuff, but there was still enough. And the buildings were still called the same things. And you went in and you went, oh yeah, I remember this. It felt a bit like going home after being away for a long time and like your parents are redecorated and stuff, but it's still the same place, you know?
But, you know, did it not feel, it felt different in the way that we were on the other side of the coin this time. So rather than being there as an employee and as a performer and, you know, and all that stuff we were doing, we were there as a guest. And I mean, I couldn't believe no one recognized us, to be perfectly honest with you. I was very disappointed walking around and doing this, you know. And what was it, you know, like a character I played once, there is full of merchandising in the shop. So, and I did go into that shop actually, and I was having a look at this. No, I didn't buy the costume, but I did walk around and there was none of that when I was there. But then I got to just have that little smile to say, you know, I was one of the first ever play that character, and now there's loads of merchandising, and it doesn't look that different from me. And there was a sense of prideness there, I think, of like, oh, do you know what? There is a little legacy there no one will ever know about apart from me and the pin that I bought.
Now, and I must make it clear that you did actually do something a little bit naughty when you were there.
I did.
You snuck backstage.
I did. Fortune favors the brave.
Yeah, well, they say that. I wasn't that fussed. You said, "Are you coming?" And I was just like, I don't think I need to. I think at that point, because as we said, we hadn't felt this massive rush of nostalgia. I didn't really feel like I needed to go back up there, so I didn't bother. But you and another.
Let me explain why. Let me explain why I did. It wasn't that I wanted to trespass or anything like that. And you know, I've got some very fond memories of those offices and stuff. And it was more around the show that we were writing, because we had just written a scene the week before about the entertainment corridor. Now, if you know, and the way we described this corridor is, you know, I wanted to validate that my memory stood up to the test of time to say, actually, the way I've described it, the way the characters will come in and out, because it features quite prominently throughout both seasons. Does it look the same? Does that rehearsal studio look the same? Did we describe it with Adam and Tatiana and all the dancers in there and stuff? What about the wardrobe room where Daisy's hanging out? You know, what about the offices where, you know, where Karen and the likes of Mark and I just needed to validate my memory. So when I went in there, I went, oh yeah, you know what? This is exactly it. Or it's completely off and that faded imagination has just gone and rebuilt it. So I went in and met two lovely people at work there, and we had a chat. And I told them, you know, can I go in? And they were like, well, we're not really sure if you can go in. I said, well, if I can describe what's behind those doors, would you let me in? And to prove that I was once working here, so I described it, and they went, yeah, and unescorted. I got to go through with another friend of ours who makes a very wonderful podcast. He came through as well. And do you know what I saw? That was probably the biggest feeling I had was when I looked down that corridor and I thought, oh my God, we have written it absolutely spot on to what that looks like. And we've got I took a couple of pictures because I thought Steve's outside. He's not here seeing this, but I wish he was up here so I could say, look, this is where Kelly was doing this over here. And that's where Adam's over there. And look, you know, and it was just great to go into the dressing rooms, to go into the green room, to go into the offices, to walk all the way down to the very bottom where the dance studio was. And it did look smaller. I'm not going to lie. I walked in there and I was like, wow, how did we all fit in here? It looks tiny. But it was exactly as written. So I felt some personal vindication there that we had been quite accurate in our descriptions. That's why I went up.
And your memories were sharp. It was all still there in the brain, in the psyche, and it obviously the place had an impact on you because there's plenty of places I've worked over the years and since that I could not describe to you now in the vivid nature of which we described it in that script. So it just goes to show quite formative years that
I
were
mean,
spent there, and I think
if you think about, as a camp coach, you're getting out and about and you're being there, you know, which was great, and I really love that, and I got to work with you quite a lot. But then when I moved on and you moved on, I went into cast. So my two homes were the stage and that corridor and that dressing room and that green room. That was the only places I ever visited, and I was doing 7 shows a day at one point, so I could tell you exactly what is where. Everywhere. In fact, these two lovely ladies that was working there, I did make the mistake of telling them about the the Slovakians that we had there, and the Turdsky situation that is actually in the script. They didn't laugh. They didn't find it funny. I think they looked disgusted, but obviously the I didn't relate it very well. But that's what I thought about when I walked into that dressing room, because that was such a moment, of this thing that was there for the entire season.
yeah.
But I don't need to go back. I got enough from going up there and just A, validating our memory, and B, it just, to me, I took a moment and I stood there and I just watched and I imagined our characters and those situations all playing out. That's what I was thinking about, that and just seeing it in my mind's eye. And, I could have just stayed there for an hour just watching and imagining like how it's all going to play out and what's going to be coming too, because my brain went into overdrive and I'm like, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And this is how it's going to end as we get closer to the end of the second season. That for me was gold to go and do that, and that's why I had to go up there. And I know you weren't that fussed, but yeah,
but if it gives you that little sort of adrenaline boost, that kind of hit of right, I'm inspiration again. I'm back there, and it's given me a little bit of a refresh on how things were laid out. For me, one of the most poignant parts of our time there was when we walked over and we found where our caravan used to be. Now the layout's different and everything, but there are still caravans there. These static caravans, and ours would have been a long time on the scrap heap. It would have been destroyed many years ago.
It was already straight after we left.
It was already decrepit when we worked there, so it's not going to be like
Yeah, even the breeze blocks had a use by date.
Yeah, exactly. But just when we stood there for a moment, I just thought of all the times and the laughs we had in that caravan. And yeah, I just had a moment and thought, yeah, things aren't so
Yeah.
bad. Do you know what I mean? We've led good lives so far, and you know, um, a lot of good times were had in that place, and it helped shape the adults that we became and the writers that we became. So yeah.
Well, I went over to the chalet lines as well, the staff
Mm.
chalet lines, and well, I hope they're all getting redone. But peering through the window like a creepy guy and just having a look in there, I can't believe we lived in those.
I can.
They are they are not nice at all. They are kind of sub. I think. Well, look, they are what they are. They're staff accommodation, and they were
Basic.
built. Yeah, they were built in like the 50s, and they used to be. I think they used to be guest chalets, and then they built
Yeah.
nicer ones, and then they put the staff in there. But again, we had some really good times running up and down those lines and doing silly things, and even again, I'm thinking, okay, where is Kelly's chalet? Where is Mushy going into, and where is Wayne appearing? And we know that there's people who work in the restaurant who live just upstairs. They're right up there, and I'm looking at the stairs and the rickety thing, and you can hear everything going on. So even then, I was like, wow, we just captured that. We captured that moment in time because they won't be there forever, and it'll be gone. But we've
Mm.
immortalized it.
And that's it. And I think it was validation for us. I think for the script and going, oh yeah, this we did get it right. Even then, when we wrote it a few years after we'd left, and then subsequently rereading it, our memories were right. It was like that. I think the funniest moment of my weekend probably was your insistence on trying to get as many people to go swimming with you as possible, and nobody wanting to go swimming.
Nobody
And I
nobody
know
brought
it's
the
a sore
bathers.
subject.
No
Yeah,
one bought.
only
Do you
you.
know? Do you know what it was? I never went to Splash in my entire time there. The pool never
Yeah,
went. The splash pool and
yeah.
and I was absolutely committed to go into this pool and saying, yeah, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to see what it's like. And I asked everyone, did you bring your bathers? And everyone said no. And then I didn't go. And so it won't be a regret I carry with me. I'm not a big fan of swimming and getting my clothes off and getting into water with lots of other people anyway.
Mm.
But yeah, no one would take that hit. No one would come with me, including you, Steve. I'm very disappointed by this.
Well, I do have a confession to make. I did actually bring my swimming shorts with me and a towel, but I did not feel up to swimming after the night we'd had, so I didn't. And all I could think was, it's just a big bowl of people soup, and I don't really want to get into that. So, um, yeah, so I didn't go. But I'm sorry you felt disappointed about that. But I did go once into the big pool with all the flumes and everything on my day off when I worked there for about 10 minutes
Because
because
too many people
then
recognized you.
recognize you, the kids then want to play, and it's just like no peace whatsoever. Your day off, and you're basically back in the lion's den. So you were better off going
Hey,
somewhere
jazz
else and doing
hands.
this. Woo! Hey guys!
Can we talk about the
So no,
car? Can we talk about the car?
the car.
I want to talk about the car.
We can talk about. Well, it depends what car you're talking about.
Well, there was a car in the car park that I would like to talk about because it's
Ah,
either
yes.
it's either really bad advertising or they know exactly what they were doing. So on the back of the window of this car, they've got kind of yellow writing with advertising on it, and it's quite common. You think a bit of a taxi and stuff. And it was as I was walking, I just happened to notice what this car said, and it was offering free male strip shows and big yellow light and male strip shows with your host, like, Donny Dongo or something like that. I can't quite remember what it said. But then that was fine. Then it had a mobile number underneath it. But it was the bit that was underneath that struck fear, cold shiver down my spine because I just wasn't sure what the context was. Can you remember what it said?
Yeah, I can, and I believe they probably were offering. They probably multitasked and had a taxi service as well as doing the male strip show. So when there was a big yellow sign, do you want me
That
to say it, or are
said
you going to say it?
kids ride free under presented by Donny Dongo under male strip shows, kids ride free. Well, I don't think I've ever seen that
It
before.
draws the attention, doesn't it?
It
It draws the
it does.
attention.
It brings a commentary on that one
Mm.
as well. Now we've changed the names and stuff like that, so we're not calling anyone out on that one. But what were they thinking? Like, when they were putting that sign on, did someone say, "Do you know what? It looked really good there. Yeah, put it that'll get the families in. That'll get them in."
Yeah. Oof. Donny Dongo. Oh, show for all the family. Yeah, no, I don't
Donny
think
Big
that's a great
Dingo.
idea.
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I just couldn't believe that was parked up. And then you're going, wait, is this one of the acts? Is there an act on that we don't know about? Is Donny Dongo and the Mel Strip show coming along? And what's the definition of a kid? And
Yeah, well, exactly.
anyway. So yeah, that really did both frighten me and make me laugh all at the same time.
Well, that's good. So, what was your favourite moment of the weekend then? So, taking the nostalgia out of it and what have you, there were a lot of bands that played that were quite famous in the '90s. It was specifically a '90s weekend, and although our time there was at the late '90s, I suppose you would consider it our era music wise. What was your favourite moment in the weekend when we were there?
Oh, that's an easy one. Spending time with my buddy and spending time with my friends. That was my no, genuinely that was my favorite. I think my other favorite was boy band wigs. I think that was quite a highlight for me as well. Is it okay to
Yes.
wear boy band wigs?
So what you mean is that there was a member of an unnamed and shall remain nameless boy band that was wearing a hairpiece
An
during the set.
obvious hairpiece as well. And yeah, no,
It wasn't me.
just,
I've gone
well, that
unnatural. I
begs the
just
question.
accepted my
That
fate.
that begs the question. I mean, so I've obviously been lucky enough to retain my receding hairline. To be in a
For now.
boy band, then can you be in a boy band with no hair, or does it not work if you're kind of pushing on into your 40s and you're still
Well,
dancing and
well, that's the question, isn't it? Because male pattern baldness is because of too much testosterone. So you could say that it's the opposite, really, and that actually the virility comes from the bald guy. But
well,
I
thank you,
think
Dr. Jones, for that assessment.
you're welcome. I can tell you that with great confidence and knowledge.
Well,
No, I think the
so
point the
look,
point being they were trying to look like they did in the '90s for their audience. I'm assuming because time waits for no one. We're all getting older, and the audience was getting older. The bands are older, but hats off to a lot of them. They were doing moves that belayed their age. I mean, if you were up close, you could see they were sweating a lot, but they were still doing the moves. And
they
fair
did
play
need a
to them.
breather. They did need a bit of a rest, and I couldn't blame them. So Steve, what was your favorite bit of the whole weekend?
Um, I think it was a time we were out on an. It was an afternoon. It was the Saturday afternoon. We just watched a comedian that hadn't updated their act since about 1983.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then they had this crazy game show with a drag queen singing, and then they had loads of music on. And we just had fun, and we just danced, and we drank a few drinks, and we were just messing around, having a boogie, having a laugh. Everybody was there. We were all just having a giggle, and it just felt relaxed. And I didn't feel like mid-40s dad with the weight of the world on his shoulders, constantly worrying about everybody. I was back to being 21-year-old me, just having a bit of fun with my friends. And I think for those few hours, I just felt that sense of no stress and no problems. So yeah, that
I
was
think there was
probably
a
my
general
my
there
favorite
was
time.
definitely a general vibe of chilliness there, wasn't there? Which incidentally was the last thing I remember of that day, to be
Yeah,
perfectly honest with you.
we're not going to talk about Saturday evening and Mike's drunken shenanigans, but we'll leave that up to the imagination of the listener or viewer, depending on what what you're watching this on. But yeah, I think it was definitely something uh, that we can reflect on and say, actually, do we need to take more time to be ourselves because we're both fathers, dedicated fathers, and we love our families and what have you. But sometimes you forget to take that time for yourself, and I think that made a massive difference to my outlook
Mm.
on life. Really, yeah, it gave me some time for reflection, which was interesting.
No, I completely agree with you actually, and because it wasn't planned, it just kind of played out that way. But I really had to hold back from heckling that comedian. I just wanted to get right in there and yell and shout and stuff. And I think that there was a few little comments coming out around some of those really dated jokes as well.
Yeah,
But you know what, man of the time, man of the time,
exactly.
and
Play to
he
the
wouldn't
audience.
He wouldn't get away with it today of all days, that's for sure.
Certainly not, and that's why he's not on TV anymore. Um, so then, Mike, what was your biggest takeaway then from the weekend? What was the biggest reflection point since you've been home and we've been to that place, we've seen it again? What was your biggest thing that you've taken from that weekend?
Closure, actually. I think there is a high degree of that happened and it was great to be there. What I've taken away though, and this is going to sound really corny, is more friendships than I thought I was going into. So we all knew each other, we all get on, but that just elevated, I think, our group friendship and experience that we all shared over 2 decades ago. To rekindle that and reconnect with those wonderful people that we were with. You and I have been best friends forever, and we have our own little bubble. But that was a unforeseen takeaway. I thought you'd go in, you'd have a bit of a laugh, and then you just leave, and it goes back to normal. But the fact that we've continued to talk and to discuss and support one another and learn about everyone's lives and where they're at, and everyone's spread all over the country, that was a really nice gift to leave with.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, to be honest, because it was one of those that made me. I mean, two things. I was invigorated to finish our story now, to finish the Camp Coats journeys, but like you say, to reconnect with those people and reignite closer bonds. I think that was massive for me because we do have a shared experience that people who've not done it they don't quite understand the lifestyle and the influence it has on the rest of your lives. And we've all gone off and done very different things subsequently, but there's that unifying factor, and it's actually what we did back then has influenced everybody's career in some way or another, and what they do now. So I think that makes me massively thankful that we did it. And I'm sure we'll all meet up again and we'll do things and maybe we'll go to another weekend. Maybe we'll try something different somewhere else. But all I know is that I want to stay in touch with those guys much more frequently because
Oh,
it,
there is a
it brought
condition,
great
though.
joy. Go
There
on.
is a condition, and that is no VK Blue ever again.
Yes, this is not sponsored by VK Blue. Vodka Kick, I believe the VK stands for, if I remember rightly. But yeah, that was on offer at the weekend, and multiple bottles of it were consumed. So thank you. We haven't got much time left now, Mike. It was just a quick episode to reflect on what went on
Well,
over
let's
the couple of
take
weeks.
it back. Let's take it back to the show, and let's close off with what's coming up next, Steve. So,
Okay.
where are we going? What's happening next? We've got how many? 3 episodes left to air.
I think probably three more to go now. Yeah,
Yeah.
might turn into more if we end up putting any little extra scenes in or anything. But I think we planned out where we want to be, and about three more episodes should cover the conclusion of our story.
So we have Adam and Tatiana, and now her dad on the well, he knows, he's been told by Kelly, well, he suspects. So there's that situation that we need to face into, and we've had a little wobble with Dan and Donna, which, their wholesome
Yeah,
relationship has had a bit of a hiccup with Donna basically preparing his life for him and saying we're going to open up a sex shop in town.
yeah, and well, there's a lot of stuff going on, isn't there? I mean, you've got Haley and the surprise there with Paula. We didn't know that was on the horizon as viewers. And there's things that maybe still haven't been resolved. You've got Sam and Adam, Robin and Adam. There's a lot of unsolved
There's a
or
common denominator here, isn't there?
situations. Yeah, yeah. Adam's fallen out with everybody basically, and that's. But there's a lot of can he just walk away or what needs to happen to give us some closure on that situation. I guess we'll have to wait and
For the
find out
next
in the next few
episode, yeah,
episodes.
and see
So
where it all goes.
so I think it's only right that being as we've referenced some of them, we better say a big thank you to the guys that joined us on that weekend. So make sure I don't forget anybody. Ali, Zoe, Kate, Dan, and Brian, and of course ourselves had a wonderful time. It was great to spend the time with them, and thank you to them for listening and tuning in if you did. To all of the listeners out there and our regular viewers, thank you for joining us. Mike, are you going to give us some words of wisdom for this week? Because I know you probably weren't prepared for this one.
I'm not prepared for this one. I'm not prepared for this one at all. And I think I'm going to save that for the actual episodes.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll catch you soon on the next episode of the Bad Scripts Podcast Presents The Last Resort. But for now, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bad Scripts was written and performed by Mike Garlia and Steve Jones, a Beach Tide production.